Hi, this is Rafael with Valley Martial Arts Supply, and you're watching Black Belt TV's product profile. Now, there's something important I want to talk about today. Metallurgy. What's this big 50-cent word mean? The big thing about it is everybody wants to know what's the best blade out there. I want the best fighting blade. I want the best sword. What's the best thing out there to stab a car, fight blade against blade, the indestructible knife that can do it all? Well, that's what we want to talk about. And you have to understand about what goes into making these metals to make the best decision. Besides making the best decision, when you go buy your sword, when you go buy your knife, you want to know what questions to ask and what goes into the manufacturing of the metal of that blade. And you also be able to distinguish who the charlatans out there who don't know what they're talking about and the people who do know what they're talking about. Okay? So the main things I want you to understand, really basic, okay? I want you to understand two concepts: toughness and hardness. So one end of the scale we're going to have toughness, and at the other end we're going to have hardness. And I put them on here on this board so you can see you have tough and hard. What am I talking about? Okay? Now this applies to all metals, whether you're making aluminum for a window, you're making a bumper for a car, sheet metal for whatever it is, and your knife and your blade, your camping axe. So toughness means if you, for example, you take a lead pipe and you beat it against a sidewalk. What's going to happen to the lead pipe? It's going to bend, it's going to dent, but it's not going to break. That's tough. At the other end of the spectrum, you've got hardness. That's like glass. Glass is very hard, but with hardness comes brittle. Along with brittle also comes you get a really good keen edge. You can sharpen it a lot. So what happens, if you picture on the spectrum, whenever you go towards one end, you lose something from the other end. So the harder you get, you lose toughness. This means if you get your sword that's going to be extremely hard, you're going to lose toughness, which means you take that sword, be against another blade, you go into a real fight, you hit something hard, it's going to snap on you. So you say, okay, I want a really tough blade. Great, you have a tough blade, but because it's so tough, it doesn't sharpen very well. It's not hard enough to take a good edge, and it's not going to stay sharp for very long. So that's what this means. This is what you want to remember. And you got to use the terminology correctly, because a lot of people just throw the words around not knowing what they're talking about. But now you'll know what to ask and how to speak intelligently about it. So you got toughness and hardness. Now what happens? You take a metal, a high carbon steel, you take iron, you take all that. How do you get it from tough to hard? Well, what you do is you heat treat it. Okay? So you're going to take the metal and you're going to heat treat it and go all the way to make it really hard. Now, the basic idea is you could take that metal, that iron that you have heated to super hardness, and it becomes very brittle. You could drop it on the ground and it'll just shatter like glass. It becomes very sharp, but it's totally useless. So what you have to do what they call tempering. Tempering is drawn back. You ever hear something is drawn steel or tempered steel? Somebody tells you, hey, you're too hot, watch your temper. That's what they're telling you to do. Temper the steel. And what you do is depends on what I like to call the right tool for the job. And you'll hear me say this 1,000 times, okay? We're going to cover a lot of material. I know this is getting technical. Stay with me, but it's important. When you want to buy the right knife and the right blade, remember the right tool for the job. If you're going to be cutting grass, you don't want to take a real hard blade because you might hit a rock and it's going to shatter. So you want to get a machete that's going to be very tough. So what does the metal in the machete have to be made of? It has to be hardened, and you're going to draw it back to a certain level of toughness all the way over here. But because it's so tough, it does not get a real good edge, and it's not going to stay sharp for very long or even get super sharp to begin with. On the other hand, a scalpel, you want to be super sharp. So you're going to harden it, and you're only going to bring it back a little bit. Have you ever held a scalpel? It literally, you can snap them in half in your fingers, but boy are they super sharp. They're even sharper than razors. I know I'm repeating it, I'm getting repetitive, but I'm trying to drum this into your memory so you know exactly what's going on when you're talking about these things. So remember, the right tool for the job. Now, a lot of this happened, for example, medieval blades. Let's talk about that. Now we're getting to swords. In medieval blades, they knew about this, and they would harden the blades, but the problem is, they got into battle, they're going into armor, they're swinging big heavy. If they were too hard, sure, they want them sharp so they could cut things, but they would snap their blades. Now what do they have? A stumpy, sharp blade. No good. So here's a clue for you. When you're looking at real medieval swords, very rarely were they very hard or very sharp. They were usually tempered all the way down here to the middle or less, so they would be very tough and they could just beat the hell out of each other. Here's the gory part. When medieval warriors were hacking each other's heads off, they weren't cutting. They were hacking, literally ripping body parts off because they were using big, blunt pieces of heavy metal. Not completely blunt, they're probably as sharp as a good sharp pencil, but still, that's about it. So now you get a good perspective. Here's an interesting part. Stainless steel. You all heard, oh, stainless steel this, stainless steel, great. Stainless steel is a wonderful metal for many different things. The way they make metal stainless is they add chromium. By adding chromium, they displace some of the carbon and allows it to be rust resistant. And it's not truly stainless. You leave it laying around, you take your kitchenware that's stainless, leave it laying around, it's going to rust. We all know that. Stainless just means it's rust resistant. Here's the trick about it though. By adding chromium, when they toughen the metal, it gets really hard, chromium sets up a wall that does not allow the stainless steel to get past this. It sets a wall and you cannot toughen stainless steel. It'll always stop right there no matter what you do. It prevents toughness, which now you see when you're dealing with a short blade or something small, you get nice, hard, and sharp. The problem is you start making a long blade and it's stainless steel, you've got a problem. At a certain point, it loses tensile strength, it loses toughness because it's all the way here, so a long stainless steel blade is no good. I like to call them watermelon choppers. Stainless steel blades can take a very good edge, they stay sharp relatively well, and they're great to chopping watermelons. But if you chop anything that has a greater density of watermelon, you'll likely break your blade. That's why I like to say the right tool for the job. Now, we'll close this segment. This is a good point to stop. I want you to remember this. And when we come back the next time, we're going to pick it up from here and we're going to talk about the next 3 very important issues I want you to start thinking about right now. Quality of the steel, quality of heating and tempering, and geometry of the blade. Thank you very much. This is Rafael again with Valley Martial Arts Supply. If you have any questions, call the number at the bottom of your screen. You can also check our website at www.valleymartialarts.com. Thank you very much for watching Black Belt TV's Products Profiles.